Hi, I'm Onat. I spent over 2 years making my first game, and it sold a measly 51 units in total. In this video, I'll share the ups and downs, the biggest mistakes I made, and the hard-won lessons I'd give to anyone starting out in game development. Plus, I'll talk about what's next for me. Now, I know there are many videos like this one on the internet, but I still wanted to share my experience to document my game development journey. I'm an architect and a 3D artist, and I have created models for both architectural projects and games in the past. Neither job ever really gave me the satisfaction because I always craved designing systems and stuff. Finally, I took a leap and decided to learn how to develop games on my own at the age of 41 and with barely any coding knowledge. I first picked up Unreal because I thought I would be able to make games without any coding. I was so wrong. For someone who has no clue how games work, using blueprints is a huge trap. I was bouncing from tutorial to tutorial, not really feeling like I learned anything after finishing them. My first idea was to make a brick breaker game because I have fond memories of playing games like Amiga's, Arkanoid and Revenge of Doh as a kid, and it looked simple enough for a novice dev like me. I made a crude prototype and showed it to my wife and a few friends, and their feedback was less than enthusiastic, so I gave up on that idea. I was able to make some things work, but I still didn't know how to do anything on my own. After a few weeks of banging my head against the wall, I decided to switch to Unity for its better documentation and huge community. The banging continued though. I eventually came to the conclusion that I had to learn how to code to be able to make games. So I started following C# tutorials. At that point, moving things in 3D space was not so big a deal anymore. So one day, I challenged myself to set up controls to make a cube roll around. And I actually did it. It felt great to be finally figuring out how to do things on my own. I even made an ugly prototype of a level in Unity later, adding keys to be picked up and a basic door to end the level. I was slowly beginning to pick up the pieces of the puzzle now. When I showed that prototype to people, they seemed to like it, which encouraged me to turn it into a full-fledged game. I thought it would be a simple enough project for my level. I was planning to spend 6 to 9 months of development time on this game, and it would be a learning experience. Since I don't know much about the mobile gaming space, I decided to publish it on Steam. After a few months, when the prototype was polished enough to make a trailer, I opened up a Steam page for it. It was so exciting. Following advice from other game devs and experts in the field, I spent days making the trailer, the capsule art and all the other art assets for the page, writing the description and finding the correct tags. I was learning new things every day, looking at my shitty old code and feeling proud of how far I've come. But something was wrong. I was beginning to have expectations from this project. I didn't want this to be an ugly, buggy and stupid puzzle game. No. I wanted it to look nice, feel nice, play nice. As I mentioned, I have a background in 3D art, so I couldn't let the visuals be mediocre. I kept polishing it as much as I could. I wanted to earn a few bucks as proof that people would pay for a game that I made. I also couldn't make it last under 2 hours because of Steam's refund policy, so I decided to make at least 60 levels for the game. I didn't want it to be too repetitive, so I added more mechanics. I was getting excited about the possibilities of having a level editor, to let people build their own levels and share them with other people. It didn't feel like that at the time, but this expectation build-up eventually resulted in scope creep. During development, some mechanics needed special care, and whenever I introduced a new mechanic, I had to keep in mind every interaction between the cube and the keys, the cube and the tiles and other tiles, the keys and the tiles. You get the idea. Remember the first prototype? I used Unity's physics system, or more precisely collision detection, to pick up the keys, and it was fine when the cube was slowly rolling around and taking its time. But it started giving me headaches when I introduced the undo function to the game, because letting the player undo the movement in the game meant that things needed to be calculated in just one frame, before anything else could happen. That's not how physics works. This became a problem with every step of development, and in the end, I had to tailor a whole system to wait for physics calculations to happen before the player is allowed to do anything. Lesson of the day: never use physics for a puzzle game if you can avoid it. There were still a lot of things that I didn't know how to solve on my own, so I was spending a whole week solving an issue at times. I couldn't possibly ask people for money for a buggy game. Making a commercial game came with the downside of the need for bug-free complete systems and a lot of polish. On the other hand, playtests were going well. I was abusing all my friends to be testers for me, but they all seemed to enjoy the game. Even the ones that specifically said they don't play puzzle games. So that was encouraging. I also released a demo after a year of development and joined the Steam Next Fest a few months after that, thinking I would soon release the game. Aside from a few minor issues, there had been almost no negative feedback about the game so far. I've been posting GIFs on Reddit and some random people on the internet were praising the visuals. I thought, wow, I'm actually making a good game here. At this point, I had some knowledge of the market and I figured out that streamers and YouTubers don't really favor puzzle games and that the puzzle genre is not that profitable on Steam. I was also barely getting any wishlists. It was too late to pivot though. I already had half of the game done and I thought it's good enough if I can just earn a few $1,000s out of this. It was a learning project after all, and I learned so many things about both the development and the publishing side. I never really had a hard deadline from the beginning, that's why I postponed the release twice. Before I started the project, I estimated the production to last 6 to 9 months. Soon after that, I realized I needed to spend a year. And after a year, I thought it would be done in 18 months. You don't know what you don't know. I was planning to have 80 to 100 levels, a cool story, a 3D main menu and a level editor. Now I'm really glad I didn't commit to any of those features. Months went by, and I was getting close to wrapping up the project after more than 2 years of development. I kept following marketing advice from other developers. I was looking for festivals to join, but there was only one that I could actually apply for, and that was the Cerebral Puzzle Showcase. I rushed to release the game a day before the event started. I was still working on the last few levels during the last week, and I didn't want to contact content creators with an unfinished version. That's why I could only start sending emails 2 days before the release. The day when I would write my name in the history of game design and join the ranks of game dev legends finally came. My monument was complete, well, hopefully the first of many. I had a finished game with menus, visual effects and sounds which people could buy and play on Steam. That felt amazing, it was a huge accomplishment. At launch, Axona had 386 wishlists. I know it's not anywhere near what people suggest to have, but I hoped it could at least convert 10% of that to sales. It didn't. I launched Axona with a $12 tag, with regional pricing of course, and with a 15% discount, and it only sold 22 units during the first 2 weeks, some of which were from friends and family. The conversion rate was around 2.5%. I kept getting many more wishlists during the launch period, so my suspicion was that the pricing was also not right. Those numbers were telling me that people would maybe buy it with a bigger discount later. It has been over 6 months since the launch, and I have made 3 discounts so far. They didn't help that much either. Right now, Axona is sitting at 563 wishlists with a 4.3% conversion rate, which is much lower than the average conversion rate of 15%. It sold 51 units in total. The good news is that my refund rate is really low, which means people who bought it and played it believe it actually deserved the price they paid. I have a few positive curator reviews and only one user review, which is actually from a friend of mine, so it doesn't count. So the review rate is also pretty low. People just don't care enough to write a positive or negative review about the game. Because it was more important to pick something that I felt comfortable with, I didn't spend any time on market research prior to development. I'm not even a huge puzzle player, so I didn't really know puzzle players loved meta-level puzzles, which might have helped. It's important to know your audience. I thought the concept was pretty original. but later I discovered there are a few other games that involve a cube rolling around to solve puzzles, even though they have completely different mechanics. All in all, I didn't bring anything new to the table. It's a decent old-school puzzle game with a few interesting mechanics, good visuals and sound, but it doesn't invoke the urgency that I must play this game feeling in most people. I tried to launch the game one day before the only festival I could attend started. That was the Cerebral Puzzle Showcase of 2025, and it featured lots of other puzzle games, which are from more established developers and with a discount, obviously. In hindsight, I feel like this was a huge mistake. Even though I probably got a small visibility boost from the event, overall it probably did more harm than good because I was suddenly competing with lots of other puzzle games. I could have just joined the festival with a highly polished demo and released the game after the event ended. There would be much less competition. I tried reaching out to a dozen YouTubers. The reason why this number is so low is that there are not that many puzzle game channels out there. I sent keys to many curators through Steam Curator Connect, but it was also late. I'm also not sure if it would make any difference if I had more curator reviews on launch. There was only one streamer who covered Axona, and sadly, fewer than 100 people watched those videos. I didn't do any paid promotion because I didn't have a budget for the game. Though probably no amount of paid promotion would save it because there's no word of mouth, no organic growth. This clearly shows that the game is too niche to be a viable product for this market. When it came to deciding on a price, I really didn't know what to pick. On the one hand, I didn't have 250 levels, so I thought I shouldn't charge over $10. But on the other hand, there are some games of similar scope that were priced higher and they sold well. Axona is also polished enough, so I thought I shouldn't undersell it. In the end, I looked at successful puzzle games similar to mine and decided to price the game just a little lower than those. I completely overlooked the fact that basically nobody knows about me or my game. Lesson learned: pricing is also a part of marketing. Lots of people who saw the game were commenting that they would play it on mobile, but what that actually means is they wouldn't really sit in front of a PC to play it. I had also hoped that Steam Deck users would play puzzle games more, but they are really a small portion of Steam and most of them are still playing action games. Pure puzzle games or thinking games do really badly on Steam. There are multiple reasons for this, one of which is replayability. Steam users love highly replayable games. This also affects the price justification for some players. Of course, there are some exceptions, but Axona also doesn't have any meta puzzles, and it doesn't combine multiple genres, so it has a very niche audience. Even if I wanted to join festivals, I couldn't, because there aren't that many festivals for this kind of game. If I were making a factory automation game, a cozy game, or a twin-stick shooter, I would have many more choices. If I combined another genre with puzzle, like roguelike or first-person shooter, whatever, things could have been different. I could only apply to 2 festivals during production, and I managed to get in just one. The more boxes your game ticks, the more options you have for festivals. It's also one of the worst genres for content creators. That was probably the biggest downside. It means that there is no free marketing. Nowadays, if nobody streams your game, nobody knows about it. Considering there are around 20,000 games coming out on Steam each year, the struggle is real. Some content creators that I contacted asked me what was different about Axona compared to other cube rolling games. And I was like, what? I already mentioned not bringing anything new to the genre with Axona earlier, but this doesn't seem to matter for some other genres because I see lots of content creators playing multiple clones of the same games all the time. So it looks like this only matters if they don't really like your game's genre. I knew most of these when I was going through the production, and I still kept going because financial gain was not my highest priority. It was first and foremost a learning project. It's just sad to see that nobody plays your game after all the time you spend making it. Now, if you're at the beginning of your game development career and you're thinking of making a commercial game, I might have a few suggestions for you. Make a small game. Small meaning 3 to 6 months of development time. This is the most thrown around advice, and from my experience it's true. There are exceptions of course, but keeping the game scope small has a few advantages aside from the most obvious one, risking less. You will learn fast and you will most likely be a better coder and a designer in a year. Your old decisions about the game design or the code you wrote when you first started out are not gonna look that great after a while, and it will be harder to pivot. This doesn't apply to me and maybe some of you, but focusing on a single project over 2 years might also cause burnout for some people. There are so many advantages to keeping the scope of your first game small. Charge less money. I would probably go and make a sub $5 game if I were just starting out today. You can also try alternative routes, such as making a free game and monetizing it later. Examples to this approach are almost every mobile game and games like Bongo Cat and Banana on Steam. Finding the players is actually more important than selling the game. Making a complete free game also takes a lot of pressure off your shoulders. Contact content creators and curators on time. Delay the release if necessary. You should try to get as many eyes as possible on your trailers and demos. Other people making videos about your game is the most valuable promotion in this day and age. I can't stress this enough. Your game's financial success is hugely correlated to the amount of views that the content about it gets. You don't really need to make a great game. You just need to make a game that draws attention, that's the bottom line. Play more games in your genre. If I played more puzzle games before I decided to make one, I would have known what to look for in a puzzle game. It would have saved me time and let me avoid making design mistakes. It could have given me some ideas that could have made the game more interesting. I would have also known more about the genre and the players, so I would have had more insight on the puzzle game market. Validate the prototype on a site like itch.io first. Get feedback and make the full version after seeing the interest. If you don't see any interest, well, that's your cue to move on to another project. Simply don't make a puzzle game. Of course, if you have an amazing idea that has never been done, you might succeed, but there are so many other genres that people are more interested in. It feels like going against the current. This does not only apply to puzzle games, but also other genres like VR or 2D platformers, which are probably the only genres that perform worse than puzzle on Steam. If you are hell-bent on making a game in one of these genres, make sure to add a twist to it. Combine it with another popular genre. Picking a genre that people are interested in is like playing the game on easy mode. You can find players more easily, content creators are more likely to make content about your game, and sometimes you even work less just because of the choice of your genre. Despite everything, I'm genuinely proud of what I accomplished. Axona isn't a slop by any means, and some of the mechanics I invented are actually pretty unique. It should appeal to the puzzle fans. But for my next project, I'm gonna be aiming for a genre with a bigger audience. If you watched until this point and you're curious about my game, you can go and check out the demo version of Axona on Steam. If this video resonated with you, consider sharing it with a friend. And if you're a fellow developer, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Before I go, I'll also suggest a recent video on the same subject. It's called Don't Ship the Wrong Game by René Habermann. Sorry if I read the name wrong. I'll post the link in the description. Thanks for watching and goodbye.